76ers, the NBA draft is here, and the 76ers still do not have a pick. Why are they in this position? We'll talk about that. And Tobias Harris, could he be on the move tonight? Keith wrote a great story on theinquirer.com. We'll talk about it next, right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonnba, and they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. I've been trying to tell you, make sure go to birddogs.com, sponsor of today's episode. Thank you, number one, for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube right here, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Welcome. You are Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Gibbons from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio here in Philadelphia alongside my co-hosts and partners, always, as mentioned already, Keith Pompey, Inquirer.com, Sixers beat writer, live from the site of tonight's NBA draft. He's in Brooklyn. What's up, Keith?
What's good, D? How you been, man?
Pretty good, man. Looking forward to tonight. We've been waiting for this, man, because this is when the league officially restarts, at least for a day or so. And then we get to free agency next week, 8 days away. But right now, this is what we have. And I'm really looking forward to talking about a blockbuster that went down twice last night with the same player. And we'll update everybody on that. Kristaps Porzingis going to Boston, some movement there. What does it mean for the Eastern Conference? And, of course, the division that the 76ers and the Boston Celtics reside in. We'll also talk about some draft pick situations, why the Sixers are in the spot they're currently in, which is looking to purchase a draft pick tonight in the second round because they don't have any. And right now, though, we start off with Tobias Harris, always a hot topic among Sixer fans, among Sixers conversation in general, typically because of the fact that that bloated contract that people felt like he got, 5 years, 180, and that has come to the final year of that deal, $39 million. And this seemed to be the prime time for a lot of Sixer fans to look to see if he is finally moved once again, could begin tonight. Now, just because he is not moved tonight doesn't mean he won't be moved at all this summer, but is looking more and more likely that right now, Tobias Harris, Keith, and of course, based on your reporting, the story you put out there in the Inquirer, Inquirer.com, it seems to be right now, it's highly unlikely that anything happens tonight.
Yeah, it's highly unlikely. I mean, the thing is, teams are calling. I mean, the Sixers have had communications with teams. But from what I'm hearing, it's more or less, hey, what will it take to get Tobias? And then they'll ask for something that they know the team isn't really willing to give up. But if the team is basically saying, okay, we'll give it up, what you really want, then they'll say, okay, well, maybe let's talk. The thing about Tobias is, and we talked about this before, D, it's one of those things where you don't know you don't know what's really going to happen with James. You may have an idea, you may think something going to happen, but until you know what's really going to happen with James, you're not going to trade Tobias, right? Like if Tobias is traded, then you figure and especially who he's traded for, then you have an idea like, okay, maybe James ain't coming back. Like maybe they know that. But until that happens, you look at it and you say to yourself, and the reason why you're holding on to him is because he's the best trade asset that you think you have that you're willing to give up, right? So the thing is, it's one of those things where I look at it and I'm saying to myself, they can't move him. Everyone knows it. Nick Nurse likes him. He wants to see what he can do with him. And then the Sixers also have other windows that they can trade him. They can trade him at the beginning of the season. They can trade him heading into the season. Before that, they can trade him at the trade deadline. They can do a lot of things. And if they like how he plays, then they can decide at the end of the season if we want to give him a deal or not. So, it's one of those things where I don't think they want to move Tobias right now unless they get a deal that's going to blow them out of the water, something they can't refuse, because they need to make their team better.
You said Nurse likes Harris.
Yeah, from what I hear, from what I hear, he likes him. I mean, Tobias Harris is a good guy. Like when you
Oh,
look
no,
at
I
it,
know that. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
just
he's a good guy. When you look at Tobias Harris, it's one of those things. What is 6'8", right?
6'9", yeah.
6'8", 6'9". You look at the guys who Nick Nurse has had in Toronto. One guy that comes to mind is Pascal Siakam. If you ask me right now, is Pascal Siakam better than Tobias? I'm gonna say yeah, right? I'm gonna
I
say
agree.
that.
Yeah.
But if you would have said that 3 years ago, I would have said no. And how did Pascal Siakam get better? Because of Nick Nurse. I feel like Nick Nurse got that out of him. He made him a better player. The same thing with Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher isn't on that level, but here's a guy that was like no one knew about him. Is a guy who basically was a diamond in the rough, or a fringe NBA player who turns out to be a solid rotation player. And they're all around that size. So when you see what Nick Nurse has had success with, Tobias Harris kind of fits the bill. And to feel like if you can get Tobias Harris out of just standing in the corner, maybe doing a little bit more cutting, doing some other things, that's going to free up things for him and Joel Embiid. So, you know what I mean? So if Nick Nurse, that's the things that he has to like about him, that you look at what you did with these other guys and see that you got kind of sort of a prototype of the same player in Tobias.
Interesting. Now, and again, I'm not surprised that he likes the man. As you said, he's a good guy. I know that. I would say the same thing. Tobias Harris is a good guy. He's a nice individual, and we know that he can play basketball. Last season, he averaged 15 points, which was down from his typical 18, 19 on average for the season. But if you're looking at, as you just explained it, someone with the prototypical, I guess, measurements and all of that of what has been in the past there with the Toronto Raptors, then yeah, Tobias Harris is really the only one outside of Jalen McDaniels, Paul Reed, if Jalen McDaniels and Paul Reed come back, that fit that criteria of what the Toronto Raptors had and the success that he found in those types of players. So, but different, because I always look at things and, like you said, I like Tobias Harris too. I didn't like how he played in Game 6. Yeah, he put up numbers in Game 7, and he did show up. I give him that. But Game 6, I was really disappointed in the fact that he went 1 for 6, 1 for 7, and just kind of took himself out of the game. Sure, you could say Harden and Embiid didn't pass the ball. They were playing two-man game. The ball was moving around, and the ball found a lot of people. And I thought that he kind of, found his way away from the basketball, if you will, after that tough first quarter, 1 for 6, only took one shot thereafter. It was disappointing. But in this offense, what you're talking about, I could see it. Yeah, movement and type of backdoor cuts and maybe some isolation plays that will work in his favor that we did see from Pascal Siakam. The one thing that I have said about Tobias Harris in the past, while he may not be on the level of Paul George, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, he is a professional scorer who knows how to put points on the board. It's just a matter of, again, consistently doing so where it also affects winning. They had a 54-win team. He was a big part of that, not taking anything away. And I'm not surprised that Nick Nurse likes Tobias
I
Harris.
mean, here's the thing, D. Like, it ain't about like making the All-Star team. It's about this. So if you're Nick Nurse and you're coming to this team, you're coming into the team. You look at Tobias Harris. You look at your contract, right?
Mhm.
You look at him being a fourth option. That ain't got nothing to do with Nick Nurse. Like I'm not the one who
Yeah,
gave him
no,
that
not at
salary.
all. No.
No, right? So for him, he's looking at it like, okay, so you got me coming in here, and the goal is, like you say, win the championship, but I definitely got to get out of the second round. So now you're telling me we don't know who the point guard is going to be, depending if James leaves or not. But then yet and still, then I'm going to basically like get Tobias, and then if the market for him might be two role players. So what am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, I got Maxey and I got Joel, and
Mhm.
who else knows? I would have been better off taking the Milwaukee job or the Phoenix job, right? I mean, well, maybe not the Phoenix now, but you would have been better off with the Milwaukee job. So to me, it's more of like, it's kind of like a coach. Like, look, hey, yo, I'm stepping in here. This is a big year. Like, what we doing now?
Yeah.
Like, if you can trade him and you can get Jared Allen or Eric Mobley in a first round pick, which is not going to happen, then I'm pretty sure Nick Nurse is like, sign me up. You know what I mean? But right about now, I look at it as if, I think it's more of, hey, he's one of the better players.
He
I
is.
can give him that contract. And
Yep.
then also the one thing that I will say about this whole situation, before Tobias Harris came here, he was regarded as one of the top free agents, right, of that class. He was.
A potential free agent.
They're potential free agents of that class before that thing happened. Now, the thing is, the Sixers messed up. You can argue. What they did is they gave up so much for him. He had the power. He got paid.
Especially
Right?
with Jimmy Butler leaving.
He got paid. So, so that it's one of those things where I look at it like, he was highly regarded before he came here. When Joel Embiid and them were out, he basically stepped up and did what he had to do. It's like, hey, the system was a bad system. He played in different roles, this and that. But at the same time, is on a championship team, you can argue that Tobias Harris on a championship team is a third or fourth option on a championship team, right? If they're trying to win,
I don't know that because I don't know that because they have been in a position for the last. He's been here for 5 of the playoff runs. They've been a contender each of those 5 years, and he hasn't also gotten out of the second round. So I can't say that.
I'm gonna say that because
Okay,
here's the
I'm
problem.
not.
The problem is we saying, and why I'm saying this is because this is what executives are telling me, that on the championship team, you need, first of all, Joel Embiid has to have a sidekick. The sidekick has to typically be a pretty good ball handler, this and that, a perimeter player. The problem is you got Ben Simmons who whatever that happened with that. You got James Harden a couple years a little bit too late. He'll show you flashes, but a couple years too late. What I'm trying to say is, if you're like the Detroit Pistons or you're the Indiana Pacers or you're a team like the Clippers were when he was with the Clippers, it's one of those things where you look at Tobias on those type of teams, he's going to get numbers. He's going to get this. But on a championship team, from what I'm saying and what I'm hearing is, and some people may not like this, but he slides down the pecking order. So that's what I'm saying. It's not like he slides down. Like you'll have Joel, then you have a perimeter player who has to be your second option, an all-star caliber player, and then he goes down. It's kind of sort of like, that's what I meant by that. You know what I mean? So,
where I say again, where I jump in and disagree is because while your second best player in All-Star was Ben Simmons, and look, we all agree that was his fault. That wasn't Tobias's fault. That was Ben Simmons. So yeah, technically they could have been a championship. They were a championship contender. It could have been a championship level team that season, but they didn't get past the Atlanta team. He was the second option scoring wise on that team. It was Joel Embiid, and then there was Tobias Harris. Ben Simmons, yes, was Ben Simmons, but the ideal scorer was Tobias Harris because of the limitations of what Ben Simmons was. I think Tobias Harris is a good player. I'm not saying that. All I am saying is, and that what I'm taking from what you're saying, when these executives say that he can be a third option on a championship,
third or fourth option, they like
third or fourth.
If he has to be, that's
no. So real fast.
I think
what I'm saying is, based on what they're
but
saying,
you didn't listen. And I'm not arguing with you, but see, you just helped my argument. What you said was they went out in the second round, and Tobias Harris had to be the second scoring option. What they're saying is he has to be no higher than a third or fourth option. We're kind of saying the same thing.
And he was the third or fourth option the last 2 playoff appearances. And I said he was the most consistent player last playoffs when they lost to the Miami Heat in the second round. I thought he was really, really good. This year, not so much. Again, but the whole point of it is the thing I take away from what you're saying, those executives are saying is this team, since they said that, they are not a championship contending
No,
team.
no, they're not.
And that's what I'm taking from it. And then again, with his lack of play this year, specifically in that game 6, he had some nice games in the playoffs. Round 1, he was good. He had some moments against Boston. Game 6, I point the finger at everybody in game 6, including Tobias Harris. And overall, though, this is going to be interesting to see if it does, in fact, play out that way that he comes back, of what Nurse can do to maybe unlock some different things here for Tobias Harris and see if it works out with him, the other 3 starters that are scorers, and PJ Tucker just being the other part. But yeah, Tobias Harris can play basketball. I'm well aware of that. And I thought this team was a championship contending team these last couple of years, and he was the 3rd and 4th option. But when there were opportunities for everybody to do something, himself included, they didn't do what was necessary for a team that is a contender or a championship team to get to the title. Everybody has stains on that one, and as far as the starters go, as scorers and all. So I think it's a fascinating debate because no one is saying he's not good. It's just the level of what you believe he is good. And you remember, I was arguing the last year Ben Simmons was here that I thought Tobias Harris should have made the All-Star team and not Ben Simmons, because I didn't think he was playing as well. And I thought Tobias was tremendous that first half of the season going into February. So, yeah, it's an interesting debate. I would not be surprised at all, though, Keith, if he is, in fact, back. The interest level around the league, I wouldn't be surprised at that either, because he's a solid player that can play on any team. So when you put out the report, and there's Indiana, Detroit, and Cleveland that have interest in, asking about him, the only problem is, yeah, Cleveland is a playoff team. I still don't see them as a championship contender. So is he going to change anything with that particular group in Cleveland? So interesting debate overall. And with it, to your point, and when we talk about adding to the teams and maybe moving Tobias or not moving Tobias, the one part that you always try to get better in the draft with some young pieces or maybe even via trade is moving one of your draft picks. And the Sixers don't have them. They're currently still, based on, your reporting and things that we both heard. And that is that they're looking to maybe buy a 2nd round pick. So with them maybe looking to do that, how did they get here? We'll talk about why they are here, how they have gotten here, why they're searching for a pick instead of already having something locked in. There are 2 less draft picks tonight in the draft, Keith. Part of that, the Philadelphia 76ers tampering, getting their draft pick taken away from them tonight. So we'll talk about it next right here. Locked On 76ers. I mentioned it at the top. Our sponsor of today's episode, Bird Dogs. Yes, this company is fantastic. They've been with us now for a couple of weeks, and they've been tremendous. I have some of their shorts, and they are very, very comfortable. The one thing that's pretty cool, how you have swim trunks or something, and you have the lining in there to make it comfortable for you as a man, or even maybe a woman, if you like these types of shorts, that you have the lining in there that makes it very easy for you. Well, the Bird Dogs company, they have put together something a lot more creative also, where you have more of the compression type of short underneath your actual shorts. And they're very comfortable. Let me tell you, they're very comfortable, whether it gets super hot out there, which we've already had some really warm days here in Philadelphia. These shorts make you feel very comfortable and not too sweaty, if you will, with these type of compression shorts. They make it very easy to style these, whether it's more for sport, just relaxing with a regular t-shirt, whether a graphic tee or just a simply nice regular t-shirt, or where you might have to dress it up a little bit. Put on a relaxed type of button-up shirt or polo style shirt with these shorts. They're really, really cool. Both with the Bird Dog stretch khaki shorts, they're designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Now, I went with the 7-inch length, where you got to show your legs a little bit, right? Well, the Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts and are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs fixed the issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like the khaki, but stretches, so you get a way slimmer fit without having sacrificed movement. I told you about that. Bird Dogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Told you. Show yourself wearing bird dogs on camera. And I can do that myself. When you do it, share it with everyone else so they understand exactly what what you are wearing when you had these shorts on. I can't do it right now because I'm sitting and I don't have them on at the moment, but maybe I'll do so another time. But I've absolutely shown you about, again, the great tumbler that we've had. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. It's fantastic. I keep mine very clean, even though it looks new. You're like, Devon, you never use that. Yes, I have. I just keep it very clean. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA for free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. Don't miss Locked On NBA Draft live tonight, Thursday night, pick-by-pick analysis from our stable of local NBA hosts, national reaction from our NBA Big Board hosts, and live check-ins from inside the NBA Draft. Locked On NBA Draft live starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Locked On NBA's YouTube page. Welcome back to Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Devon Givens here with you. And Keith, as we look at things here with the draft, and I'm still, listening, just keep going back to the executives telling you, or the NBA people, pardon me, telling you the information that you're hearing, that they just, he is that type of player, Tobias Harris, on a championship team.
Here's the thing, D. Here's the thing, D. No,
No.
hold on. Just listen.
I didn't
Please.
finish yet. Hold on.
No. Can you please listen?
Hold on.
Can you please listen to
The fact
this?
that they don't think this team is good enough, that they are not a championship team, is where I am. Where we think they're contenders, they don't.
Nah, and this is why they don't. So here's the thing: we can make fun of Tobias all we want, or say whatever, or do
talking
this.
about the team.
We'll not make fun of him, but here's the thing. Here's the one thing. There was only, of the big four, Tobias Harris, the only one who's had better stats in the postseason than the regular season.
And I gave him credit for that.
Yeah. I know the rest of them went down. But what we're saying is the other guys are, so like, even when we talk about the whole Ben Simmons fiasco, like, they lost the one game because Ben Simmons was scared to shoot.
100%.
They lost this. See, people forget. I mean, people ain't remembering. Like, James Harden in the fourth, I don't know if he scored a point in the fourth quarters of game 5, 6, or 7. I mean, it might have been 4 too. No, it was what? No, 6, 7. No, it was 5, 6, and 7. He didn't score a point in the fourth quarter. So when we look at that, yes, Tobias has to step up. Other people have to step up. But if you're the fourth option, and the number 2 option is the dude, when we talk about money time and you're not giving them nothing. Hey, if James is supposed to come to play, Joel is supposed to come to play. And then Tobias is supposed to, on this team, Tobias, the one thing about this team was so messed up to where when Tobias Harris came here, or even 2 years ago, a year ago, we were saying he was a liability on defense.
He's improved.
Next thing you know, I mean, he improved, but also some of them other dudes who were supposed to be straight dogs was getting abused, were getting exposed. So he went from being a liability on defense to being their best perimeter defender in the playoffs, which is crazy.
Who are you talking about?
So,
who are the other people that turned out to be dogs? Who?
I ain't trying to embarrass people, but people could look it up and see. A lot of these dudes couldn't guard. Like, a lot of people that they came out and they said they got to make the defense, they just couldn't guard. I mean, he went from being like, because it was crazy. Like, I remember when he first came here, they were just running around. Now, he worked on it, but it got to a point where dudes was getting picked on. A lot of people were getting picked on. And I like Jalen. I like Jalen McDaniels, but he didn't even play after game 3. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? So, that's what I'm saying. It was kind of sort of, you know what I mean? So, people can argue about him all you want, but what I'm just saying is, if Tobias Harris was on the Golden State Warriors or some team like that was going to win, or like, even like the Denver Nuggets, like, he would be like Aaron Gordon example, great example. Aaron Gordon was the man in Orlando, right? Duncan. For a championship team, it's like, no, bro, you got to roll, you do this, and when time comes, we'll unleash you. But outside of that, you just you get in where you fit in. That's all I'm saying.
But see, you jumped me before I even finished to know what I was saying. And what I was saying was the people in the NBA saying that they are not a championship team. It wasn't about Tobias. It was about them not being a championship team. And that's where I was going. It had nothing to do with Tobias. I agree with you that he was consistent in the playoffs last year. He was good in the first round this year. He had his moments against Boston. He, just like everybody else in Game 6, didn't play well. It was a low-scoring game. He only took 7 shots. James Harden, I destroyed James Harden for Game 6 for not stepping up in the final 5 minutes and doing something. Yes, he passed the ball to DeAnthony Melton. He got him some good shots. I give him that. But when guys did not make shots, then you got to take over too. And then when we come out, of course, the whole end of the press conference and all, and Joel Embiid is not getting the basketball and saying I need to get the touches and all of that stuff, then that goes back to the point guard, not Tobias Harris. And we get on a Tobias Harris piece. It was more about what the league is saying about this team not being good enough. That's what I took out of it. It was not a Tobias Harris knock. It's saying in the evaluation of what Tobias Harris is on a championship team, this team is not a championship team. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to the picks part real fast, because you know what? No, let's do that on the other side. Let's get to the picks part, and we'll do the picks, and we'll also talk about Kristaps Porzingis traded to the Boston Celtics, some movement there. We take a quick break. We come right back. Final segment here on Locked On 76ers. And I got to tell you, for a championship team, we're talking about it, trying to figure out the 76ers can get to that level like the Denver Nuggets. It's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. Ideally, as we just talked about, Aaron Gordon and Tobias Harris. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right. And that's the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are, yes, guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay, guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, Keith. Draft picks, none tonight. How do we get here? They also don't have one tonight because of the tampering issue that the NBA investigated after the PJ Tucker signing, that they did enough investigation where they took away a pick from the 76ers. So only 58 total picks tonight in tonight's NBA draft. The Sixers, and is it Miami or Chicago, the other team that doesn't have a pick there because of the tampering? But either way, the Sixers don't have one. And again, the reports are that you're saying that they're trying to get back into it, maybe purchase one in the second round. How did we get here, Keith? Why are we here?
I mean, trades, basically. I mean, well, the tampering, like you mentioned, the tampering thing. So that got them. But the one thing is, when you traded for James Harden, and I know people say, "So, hey, man, it's a 28th pick." Yeah, we get it. But when you traded for James Harden, what happened is Brooklyn had a chance to defer the pick, and they deferred it last year. So now Brooklyn gets that pick, but then Brooklyn gave it to Utah, right? So Utah has it. But then also the one thing is the 34th pick is what happened is they gave the rights to that pick to the Charlotte Hornets, right? So the Charlotte Hornets got that pick. And, to me, in a way, I get it. James Harden, if somebody say, I'm going to trade, you're going to trade a first round pick for James Harden. You just are. Yeah. You have to. The thing is, though, the unfortunate thing for the Sixers is, and I get it, after the top 4 players in this draft, it can go anywhere. There are going to be people, like some people like, oh, it's not a deep draft. Don't worry about it. But the thing is, a guy can slide. Or there are going to be some people sliding tonight, and we're going to be like, wow, I didn't know he slid. There's going to be other people who are going to get elevated. So the thing is, I think that, you can get some quality at number 28 and number 34. So unfortunately for the Sixers, this isn't the year to not have a pick just because of that. You know what I mean? You can get some, but again, you give up those picks for people. But I don't know if I would have gave up that pick to get rid of to get Jalen McDaniels. Now again, you got it to get the expiring contract, and then this and that, and then you evaluate him to see if you want to bring him back and doing this and that. But to me, it's just again, you give up the pick for James, whatever. But to me, this is just a tough one, being as though that there'll probably be some players available.
And just as a reference point, yesterday the Denver Nuggets acquired, Keith, 29th and 32nd picks overall in the draft in a trade with Indiana. And the Nuggets will send a 2024 first-round picks in the 40th of this year's draft to the Pacers. So right now, Denver, who is, Bruce Brown is opting out of his $6.8 million. They now have 29, 32, and 37. If you remember, they made a trade during the finals that also helped them out to get in there. So that's what you're talking about when you speak about the good GMing. They acquired the 37th pick from Oklahoma City in the draft a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, man, I mean, to what you're saying, those later picks like that, that's something that you would like to have in your cupboard right now for this type of draft.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
You can do a lot.
Yeah.
With it. You can make some trades with it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Now, real fast, the trades that went down last night, there were two of them. One was nixed, but it involved the same player. The first report, Keith, was Kristaps Porzingis opting into his $36 million from Washington. It seemingly looked like he and Kyle Kuzma would both opt out and become unrestricted free agents. But a trade popped up with the Boston Celtics where he would go there, opt into his final year of his deal, and have some movement go on. The original deal was Malcolm Brogdon to go to Los Angeles Clippers, Marcus Morris, Amir Coffey, and I think some picks from mixed in there going back to Washington as well with Marcus Morris and Amir Coffey. That was later nixed because, based on reports, Malcolm Brogdon, they didn't like his physicals. Later on that evening, 2 hours to get, it was about 10 o'clock because I was, no, it was before. Yeah, it was about 10 o'clock because I was on the air, and it came out that now they have resurfaced the talks. It looked like the deal was done. Resurfaced talks. They had a midnight deadline for Porzingis to opt in and decide if he was going to go to Boston. He decided. Then they found another third team, Keith, to go along with Washington. Tyus Jones from Memphis to Washington. 2 first-round picks go to Boston as they then send Marcus Smart to the Memphis Grizzlies. So a blockbuster to start things off. Look, I think the best part about it for Boston was getting the 2 first-round picks. I like Kristaps Porzingis. I don't know how much better he makes them, but he certainly gives them another scorer that they didn't have in that type of role a season ago. So he can do that. Where do they go for point guard play? What does this now mean for Malcolm Brogdon? Does Derek White start? What does this all mean for them? It's their problem, but it's also an Atlantic Division opponent for the Sixers, since we are the Locked On 76ers podcast. What did you make of this trade? Were you surprised Marcus Smart was dealt also?
I felt like that they had to make the trade, and it got to a point where, Malcolm Brogdon, people were scared of the medical.
Yeah.
And then you look at it, and it was unfortunate for them that you had to get rid of Marcus Smart. But at the same time, you look at Malcolm Brogdon, who's been a starter in this league, who can step in and basically take over that role. The thing is, I have mixed feelings about Kristaps because I think that Kristaps is the guy, like he's really athletic. However, I felt like he's been an underachiever in the NBA. You know what I mean? Here's a guy that was supposed to be the man in New York, The next thing you know, it doesn't work out for him. He showed some early flashes.
Made the All-Star team.
Made the All-Star team. I mean, then he goes to Dallas, and and then you hear him and Luka don't really get along. Then he ends up in the DC, and DC is doing the basically unloading the pieces. And then now he comes here. He comes to Boston. So, you know what? I think he's a good player. It's just that it's not like, oh my God, look, people expecting him to be the man. Now, the one thing that it does do is, depending on where he plays, like because if he plays the four, he can play the four. If he plays the four, then all of a sudden, if you can keep Jaylen Brown, and then you got him at the 2, and you got Jason Tatum playing the 3, and him at the 4, that's a long team right there. That's a long team. So for me, I look at it as, we talk about options, right? So him being a number 1 option or a number 2 option is not going to be on a championship team. But if he can be, because Malcolm Brogdon's a good player, if he can be the number 4 or number 3 option, then we're talking something different. But like you said, they do have the draft picks. It helps out. But, I don't know if he's going to be the man, because he's not going to get opportunities to be the man. But for him as a role player, he's going to be a quality role player.
Yeah, I think it was a good move. It's not anything that's really making me look at them and saying, oh my gosh, they just put them over the top. No, it's another nice piece that they have, another good job. And to get those 2 first-round picks, stroke of genius there for Brad Stevens in the front office to get that done. I guess I was a little surprised Marcus Smart. Didn't expect it last night, based on how we had heard the framework of the deal earlier in the day. But that's how it goes, man. What are you thinking real fast? Big trade night, not necessarily for the Sixers, but just overall. Big trade night or a quieter night?
I don't think is a trade night. I mean, I wouldn't be. I mean, I think maybe depending on like if a team like Indiana's because Indiana of the teams, Indiana likes them the most. Well, they all like them.
I just meant in general. I didn't mean Sixers. I just meant league-wide. Do you think it's a big trade night?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I think it is. I do. I think it's going to be a big trade night. I do. Okay. I think
I was starting to hear like Paul George, is he out there? All kinds of stuff, man. So it's going to be a fun night. Keith, as always, man, always a blast. People, don't be scared when we argue. We do this off the air too, so it's all good. It's my brother. Thanks for making Locked On 76.
Roxborough is trash.
Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow on the show. We'll recap the draft and see if the Sixers got themselves into it by acquiring a pick. Keith, you mind letting the good folks know where they can find us there overall?
Yeah, you can. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, but make sure when you go to this podcast, go to the our YouTube channel, right? And when you get there, click on the Liberty Bell. You become a new subscriber, right? Also, you need to check out D tonight on 97.5 FM. He's going to be on the Divine Giving Show from 7 to 10. I'll be on there at 7:30.
Look at that. So an appearance by Keith Pompey. Yeah.
We're going to argue some more. So make sure you check that out. But yeah, like make sure you check my man D out. But also follow him on Twitter at DivineG975, right? Follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. You can read my articles in the Philadelphia Inquirer.com.
Make sure you guys listen tonight at 7:30 where Keith will join us. So maybe there's some more stuff that I can get under his skin about tonight. But really, in all seriousness, listen to us tonight at 7:30, but make sure you follow Keith throughout the day because when there will be updates, he will have them for you in regards to the 76ers. Keith, have fun up there, man. I'll talk to you later on tonight, and we'll get after it. Thanks, man.
Peace, bro.
Peace.